In this video, I will tell you about the tutor of which her student collapsed. Todd Boomer is a graduate of secondary school. Together with his friends, he opens envelopes with the results of entrance exams at the University of Boston. All three successfully pass the exams, but the mathematics teacher Roy Miller refuses to sign the characterization of Todd for admission to Harvard due to an unsuccessful control. Sitting on the shore of the pond, Todd draws caricatures when he suddenly hears a scream from the opposite shore. He is scared, and a girl named Vicky apologizes for this. She sometimes so wants to scream that she cannot restrain emotions. Todd considers it normal and also begins to scream, but Vicky has already disappeared. In the evening, friends go to a party to one of the classmates. While Paul is trying to get acquainted with the girls, Kirsten calls Todd to walk to the park. Sitting on a bench and hiding in a blanket, the couple begins to kiss. However, noticing Todd in elastic band, Kirsten is offended because she did not invite him for this. Meanwhile, Paul is trying to hide from an annoying nun. Seeing Todd driving a car, he sits in it and asks to leave as soon as possible. On the way, they meet Vicky, who stands on the sidelines next to a broken car. Approaching the guys, Vicky recognizes Todd. It was he who was scared of her scream on the lake. The guys offer her help and take her with them. Paul is trying to make a compliment, saying that she has a cool machine, but it turns out that she belongs to her husband. Vicky says that her husband did not put a spare wheel in the trunk. The Trinity stops in the diner, from where the Vika calls the tow truck. He will come only in an hour, and the guys treat the girl with ice cream. Leaving the cafe, Vicky pays for himself and for the guys. What Todd asks to leave at least tips. On the way to the car, Vika Todd shares his problems with mathematics and admits that his life will collapse if he does not retake the control. Vicky is sure that everything will work out for him. Having delivered Vicky to the car, Todd persuades her to work out with him mathematics, as this can save his future. Vicky promises to think and say if something changes. Returning home, Vicky meets the husband of Roy Miller, the very teacher who flooded Todd on the control. Meanwhile, Tada is met by a father. Jack is disappointed that they spent so much effort that Todd entered Harvard, and he could not hand over the school control. Hearing from his son that he needs a tutor, his father promises to help with the search. But Todd says that he has already found a tutor, which causes pride in his father. Todd goes to the lake where Vicky first met. A girl appears who begins to unfasten the dress, claiming that the answers to all questions are hidden under her clothes. Suddenly, a man with a gun appears, who screams that this is his wife. Fortunately, this is just a dream. At a lunch break, Todd shares good news with Paul. Vicky called him. In the chemistry lesson, Kirsten asks for forgiveness for that night in the park, explaining that she needed time to understand the situation. After the lessons, Vika comes to Todd while his parents left, leaving them alone. The next day, Todd tells Paul about classes with Vicky, helping him with moving to the house in the yard. Despite the fact that they were engaged only in mathematics, Todd wants to smoke a cigar at the end. Classes with Vicky bear fruit, and he invites her to the next lesson. After a conversation with Vika on the phone, Todd meets with Kirsten and deceives her, claiming that his tutor is an old woman with problems. Kirsten resembles Todd about a traditional dinner with friends, to which he will not be able to come because of classes with a tutor, but Todd promises to come up with something. While they are engaged, Kirsten comes to the diner. Despite the fact that Todd is not, she cannot leave her friend alone. Later, Todd comes with Vicky, who agreed to give him. When Kirsten understands that Todd deceived her, she leaves. Offended, Todd meets with Paul and tries to find out if Kirsten said something to him. The floor believes that Todd did well, deceiving the girl, but Vicky is something. Todd leaves, and soon, Kirsten approaches the floor asking about Todd. She thinks that Paul knows everything, but he covers a friend. Nevertheless, according to Paul, Kirsten is also his friend, which causes a smile from a girl. In the lesson of mathematics, Roy Miller asks Todd the question, and he answers correctly. The teacher is surprised and says that the recommendation of Todd for entering the university now looks much better. Todd shares this news with Vika and invites her to the lesson. Vicky offers Todd to come to her to show his sculptures. When Todd arrives, he sees her masterpieces and does not understand why she holds them in the garage and does not show anyone. Vicky believes that everyone will take her for a crazy one. At least her husband adheres to just such an opinion. The girl admits that she does not really get along with her husband, so she is pleased to communicate with Todd, for whom Vika has a gift. Seeing what Vicky did with her own hands, Todd thanks her and kisses her on the lips. From surprise, Vika is lost but does not allow him to do this again. They move to the house where Vicky begins to flirt with Todd, and soon they kiss. Vicky sits on his knees and, taking off his dress, shows his real lesson in mathematics. Todd shares his impressions with his friend, to whom he comes in the middle of the night after meeting with Vika. The floor does not show much joy, and Todd decides that a friend just envies him. Returning home, Paul opens the door to his Comore, where Kirsten is located, which heard their whole conversation. At a school dinner, Todd approaches the table behind which Kirsten sits. The girl defiantly collects her things and gets up. Todd does not understand what's the matter. matter. Then Kirsten loudly shouts about Todd's connection with his home teacher. Todd believes that Paul told her about this, but Paul explains that Kirsten was with him in Comorca when Todd shared his studies with Vicky. Todd is angry with his friend because he believes that he did not warn him, because he likes Kirsten. Their quarrel is interrupted by Roy Miller, who punishes them to look after his car parked in front of the school. On Todd and Paul see the Corvette, next to which Vicky stood the night when they picked up. The guys understand that Roy Miller is Vicky's husband. Upon learning that the swarm is going to fishing, Todd rushes to Vicky. He is unhappy that she did not say anything that her husband is a teacher, Todd. Vicky did not attach importance to this. Todd does not understand how she could marry Roy because he is a tyrant. Vicky claims that he was not always like that. She says that he is better off to leave, but Todd begins to kiss her. At this time, the swarm returns from fishing. Hearing the noise in the garage, he decides to check what is happening there. Approaching the garage, Roy calls Vicky. Hearing his voice, Todd is hiding among the sculptures, and Vicky pretends to be drunk. While Roy cleans the fish, Todd moves into another shelter. At the exit from the garage, Roy asks Vicky about the printer to print a recommendation for the talented student of Todd Boomer. Vicky promises to find a printer. At school, Roy approaches Todd and shows his school notebook found in the garage of Vicky. He asks if Todd thought that Roy would not know anything. In a panic, Todd says he made a terrible mistake. Roy, showing the results of the control, says that there are only 2 errors. He realized that Todd is engaged in mathematics with his wife Vicky and promises to write a recommendation for him to the university. In mathematics lessons, Roy sets Todd as an example to other students, justifying his cruelty. After lessons, one who considers his cruelty to the students unreasonable is suitable for Roya. This was to him the wife of Roy, Vicky. Todd goes to the exit, but Roy stops him with the question of whether he was sleeping with his wife. Unable to restrain himself, Todd admits everything. Roy rushes home and Todd is trying to warn Vicky, but she is busy and does not hear the phone call. When Roy arrives, he begins to destroy everything in the garage, and at that moment, Todd appears. Roy considers Todd a genius because thanks to Vicky, he pulled himself up in mathematics and then slept with her, leaving Roy as a fool. Roy also wrote a good recommendation for Todd in Harvard. Distracting Todd, Roy cuts him out. When Todd comes to his senses, he asks for forgiveness from Vika for what had happened, and she thanks him because she had to part with Rome for a long time. To the question of Todd about her plans, Vika replies that he is going to New York. Perhaps there she will be able to realize her sculptures. She escorts Todd and gives him a recommendation for the university. They kiss again. At the interview, he is asked why he wants to go to Harvard, and he replies that this is his father's dream, but he himself believes that this is not what he needs. Returning home, Todd admits his parents that he does not want to go to Harvard. His dream is an art school. Todd goes to the diner where they gather with friends. Having called Kirsten to take a walk, he asks for forgiveness for the pain caused, but begs to never delete him from the list of friends. After some time, the Trinity sits on the pier and discusses who they will be in 10 years. According to Todd, the floor will work on its supercomputer, and Kirsten will release the first collection of popular poetry. Todd himself, according to the floor, will shout out the free cashier in McDonald's. I also advise you to watch other videos on my channel. Good luck!